Hi, my name is Lorraine Watry and welcome to my studio. I am a watercolor artist and I've worked with watercolor for 26 years now, and I thought I would start a new series of videos where I go over different tips, tricks, and techniques for working with watercolor. And hopefully these short videos will help you in your journey, and if you have a question or a technique that you would like to see, please comment below and I will try to accommodate that in a future video. Hi, today's tip and trick video is going to talk about values and in a watercolor and how you can match a value. And I had a viewer ask the question how to adjust a wash, the value of it, by adding a layer so that it matches or correctly corresponds to a similar value in a painting. And so this might be the same color, or it might be a different color that you're trying to get a similar value between the two colors. And I have two things here that I'm going to discuss and do a little demo with. I've been working on a commission, and this is my color study for the commission, and I didn't do the whole thing, so I had it available that I can do a little demo on there, and it was just enough to give me information before I started the actual painting. And that's why there was no video last week, because I was busy trying to get that commission finished. I've had it around for a while and need to get it done. And then this is just some color swatches that I had that I thought I could use for this discussion. So I have on here a variety of values, and I will try to match some of these paints either with a similar color or maybe a different color and try to get close in value. And one of the ways that you can help yourself if you are trying to figure out if a value is correct is to first of all use a value scale. And this one is one I printed and made myself in my graphics program, so I just printed it at home, but you can purchase value scales. And then another way is to, while you're working on your painting, take a picture of it and change it to black and white. And sometimes it helps to, let me grab a card over here. Sometimes it will help to isolate the values. So on this piece of paper, and this is just a piece of watercolor paper that I punched holes in, and I can check the values. So maybe I want my, well, actually, maybe I want my value of this top surface on this fireplace area to be a lighter value. And so I can cover that. And then if I want to check, oops, sorry, let me move this. If I want to check and see if this value is darker or lighter than the value on the right, isolating your area can help you see if the values are different or the same. And same thing here, I can look, and so I can definitely see that this section is a little darker than this value over here. And obviously if I went totally different color and went up there, it really stands out that this is a darker value than this one. So it can help to isolate and make the area smaller, and that will give you some information on the values, and because color distorts what we're seeing with the values. If it's a very vibrant color, sometimes yellows can be a little confusing because we tend to think of them as being darker than they actually are. And I will paint a swatch of yellow on here, and then I'll let it dry while I'm doing some other things, and then we can look at its value. So that is something to think about as well, is that color can change what we think we're seeing. I think I'll go with a hands-on medium. And every color has an inherent value that it can go, it won't go darker than that. So your blues and some of those colors are going to go very dark, whereas yellows, you won't be able to go as dark with them. So those are things to think about as well. when you're doing washes and layering color, you can adjust the value. So I have two darker shapes here that are darker than this one. And some of working with values is knowing that it just takes time and that you have to put in enough painting hours that you start to see the values a little better. And that is true for myself in that in more recent years, I have been able to see and work with the values on my painting a little better, and well, probably a lot better than when I used to paint in the beginning. So I am leaving the paint that's on my palette right now because these are the colors I'm currently working with in the commission that I'm doing. So when I am working on a painting, unless I need to do a different series of colors, or maybe my colors have started to get too blended together, then I might go ahead and clean it up and go get fresh paint out. But I'm still using these colors, so I'm going to leave them out for right now. So I do know that this color, I believe, was burnt sienna and some yellow, and my yellow was Quin Gold. So I'm going to get some Quin Gold. Now, when you first get those out, they look pretty intense. So I'm going to just swatch the color here, and you can see I'm trying to get down to this. So that is another thing to think about. When you are working with values and you're trying to get a certain value, you have to think about how much pigment is in your paint. So you may want less pigment. Whoops, a little yellow there. You may want less pigment, or you may want more pigment. And so when I'm pulling my pigment out, I generally, even if I'm going to go lighter with it, I will get out a decent amount of pigment and then I can add water to it. Partly because I want to have the ability to lighten it, and if I don't get out enough pigment, then generally it can be kind of sticky paint, or it may just be very thin and not have a lot of color to it. Now, when you're doing washes and layers, you can just keep adding layers. So you could literally add layer upon layer upon layer and let it dry in between, because it does need to set just a little bit. If you add a layer and it's still slightly damp, you might actually be lifting color rather than applying a new layer that will add value. So if I want to adjust this one to get closer to this value, I'm going to make my mix to try to get it as close as I can, and I can test it over here. So that's pretty close to what I already have. So then what I can do, and I know that this has a little more brown in it. This one is just a touch yellower. But if I want to, so I'll go with a touch more brown. So I'm going to try to get close to this value, and I won't cover the whole thing. I'll just do a section. I can just add that layer and let it dry. And I tend to go slower by doing a layer, and then if I need to add another layer, I will, and I can show you a little bit of that on the color study in just a second. So I will let those dry, and this is actually color-wise maybe not the exact color that I've got here. I think I may have had a touch of purple in this as well. It's a little more muted. So if I'm just trying to get the value, maybe not the color exactly, then once this is dry, I can look at those and I can use my little holes to test it and see how close they are in value. And then the value scale that I showed you, that will kind of give you an idea of kind of where you want to get to in your value. But maybe I've got these two areas that I want them to be very close in value, but they're a different color. So taking my value scale and looking at the value, and if you squint your eyes, that's pretty close in value. That little circle is just a little lighter, and that is darker. So it's probably about 20% in value. So it's not necessarily going to tell me exactly what I have over here, but it just tells me, okay, it's on the lighter range. It's not very dark. And then I'll just take some of my color that I have sitting here and go ahead and put that color next to the purple. Now, there is going to be an edge here because of the fact that I am just barely touching over the edge probably with my brush. And then I'll let that dry and I'll check it and see if the value feels like it's pretty close. If it feels like it's a little dark, I could come back with some water and I could go ahead and lighten it just a touch. If it feels like it's very similar, then I'll leave it. If it's a little dark or a little light, then I can come back with a little more color and put another wash on top of this. All right, so I'll give those things some time to dry, and then I'm going to go over to my little color study here and basically work on this a little. So I know that this area on the dog right here is darker. Maybe I want this part of the shoulder of the dog to match that area. And it actually is darker in the image, but for the sake of doing this demo, I'm going to go ahead and darken that area just a little. And I know that I'm using a mix, which I have over here. So I'm going to make some of that. And I will start up higher and then come down. Now, if I'm trying to get close to this value, but maybe I don't want to add any color to that value, I can add some water into that section because I've already got it the value I want. Whoops. And then I can bring my color next to that water without actually adding color to that section. So now I've darkened that whole area. And so using water can be important depending on if you're wanting to put color over the whole thing or if you just want to put color over a section of it. Let me get just a little darker here. And probably a little more of the blue. I'm using a mix of ultramarine blue and quinacridone burnt scarlet. And so if I want to go just a little, and this is going to be an issue now because this paper had started to dry, this area had started to dry, so I will have to go back and I actually have to put color over this whole area now because I have, it's going to cause a bloom because it was just a little dry already. I probably should have just left it alone. As they say, walk away. Okay. Okay, so I have darkened that whole shoulder area and it's not maybe quite as dark as this edge right here because this edge is one of the darkest areas, but I have now basically combined those shapes right there. So this was lighter over here and now it's pretty similar in value, although the water that I put on just a second ago has lightened this somewhat. So it was there, but I messed with it. I should have left it alone. Okay, I will leave it alone now. Okay, so so you can see that it can be done. It is a building process where you do a layer and then maybe add another layer. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but up on the head, I could maybe try to get this value that's a little lighter to go darker. And so I can add color there. Now that is darker than some of the areas around it, and so then it would be trying to match So maybe I want to go ahead and darken this side. Now I can just tell. So everything that I'm doing with this dog here is building in layers. And I know that I want some things to be darker, some things to be lighter. And so it's a matter of adding glazes slowly to get them where I want them. And let me see if I can show you. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to take my swatch and we'll just see. So it's definitely darker than 10%, which this is about 10%. This is, it's about 20%. Yeah, it's about 20%, and that's about 20%, because it's definitely lighter than 30%. So those are very similar in value now. Now, if they were right next to each other, we'd probably be able to see that better. Let's look at these guys. It's about 30%, and that is lighter. So I'm going to come back in with that same color. And I'll do one more glaze, and then I'll see how it's looking. I may have to come back with a little bit of water later and lift that. So that's one of the things with watercolor, is that it dries lighter than how you put it on. So in general, your color is going to, although it might appear a little dark when you first apply it, it will dry lighter. There is a bloom that had happened on this color swatch, and so you can see where there's a darker edge and then there's lighter areas around it. So if I want to get that area to kind of become the same value, I can add water down here and kind of up over the bloom. And then let me see if I can, trying to remember what color. Oh yeah, this is my Carbazole Violet with some of the Quinn Burnt Scarlet in it to neutralize it. And I need to go darker. So I can already see that this is going to dry lighter than that darker shape. And so I'm going to, nope, it's getting there, but it's still not quite dark enough. So I know I need more color. And in order to keep it more on this less vibrant look, and this is still slightly damp, so I can still work with it. If it had started to lose the shine, then I would stop. Okay. So I'm just kind of pulling down from where that darker value was. And then I can go ahead and pull that color around this whole lower section. So I just wanted you to see that the darker value is still there on that upper edge, but now it doesn't look like it was a bloom. It has been adjusted. Now when this dries, there may still be a little bit of a darker edge right through here, but it won't be as noticeable. And I could decide to add another layer to that section if I want to. All right, so let me show you on the yellow. It's mostly dry. It's just cool to the touch, but it's pretty much going to be that color. So so it's definitely darker than 10%. So remember, you squint your eyes to see if you can see, because that takes out some of your color that you're seeing with, and you see more with the value in your eyes. And that is also a really good way to look at your painting, is to set it across the room from you and squint. Or you can take out your contacts if you wear contacts, take your glasses off. All of those things can help you see the values better. And then sometimes I will also, in a room where I can dim the lights, or turn the lights down or off and you can still see the painting. Sometimes reducing the light in the room can also help you see the values. And let's see, that's darker. It's a little lighter. It's a little hard to tell, but I would say it's definitely lighter there. So it's probably somewhere in the 20 to maybe 25% range. But yeah, it's not dark, even though it looks like it has a lot of value here. It's not as, that's pretty close. That's definitely lighter. Maybe it's a little, yeah, see, that's definitely lighter. So it's somewhere in maybe the 20 to 30% range. And then in comparison, when you look at that, that's definitely darker. That's about 40%. But these feel pretty close in value to each other. Okay, so you can see that this is starting to dry, and I do have a little bit of a darker edge there still. So once this is completely dry, I could come back and add a little more color to it if I would like to. I'm not sure there's much else that I can talk about. So the biggest thing is really working it up slowly, using water if you need to in order to keep one area of the section just the same value if you like where it is in value. So right here where I use the water and then put the color near it. And then it's giving yourself time and enough hours behind the brush to slowly figure out the value of something. And let me check one more time. Let's see, what did we have? I think it was about 20% there. And it's maybe just slightly darker, but it's still drying. So I can't really, I guess I could put a little water on there. And then I think for me, unless it's a really important section that has to be the exact same value, if your values are somewhat close, even if they're not exactly the same for an area, it generally won't matter so much. Let me see if I got that. That's better. Yep. So you can see I can adjust that just by adding a little water and lifting just a touch of color off of that. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope the original question was answered, and if not, if you can clarify, or if anyone else has questions along those lines, please leave a comment below. And if you have a tip, trick, or technique with watercolor that you would like to see, please let me know, and I will add that to my list of videos. And I hope to see you next week, depending on how busy I am. And have a good day. Bye.